The Honourable Leader of the Second Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm pleased to introduce my first bill today, Bill 204, which is designed to make politicians and candidates for public office more accountable for what they say. As it stands, during elections, it appears that people who are responsible for signing off on messaging are financial officers. This may indicate that it's an official election expense, but it blurs accountability of who's standing behind and signing off on a message. So on the internet, we know that people say terrible things all the time that they would not say otherwise because they are anonymous. The hope is that this bill will raise the level of the debate by requiring that leaders and candidates take responsibility for the messages that go out under their own banner. Simply, communications would say approved by the leader or candidate instead of by a financial officer. So will the Premier and his caucus consider raising the bar of political discourse in Manitoba by supporting this bill?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Of course, our government, in a number of different ways, has always looked at the way to ensure that elections are fair, that they're transparent, that they're dealt with in a way that all Manitobans and all those who are voting can have confidence in the system, Madam Speaker. We've seen too many examples over the years. I think back to the sponsorship scandal, Madam Speaker, under the Liberals in Ottawa, Madam Speaker, where there was a degeneration of the confidence in the electoral system, Madam Speaker. I know that we're going to have a committee meeting with the electoral officer on Wednesday. Invite the member to the meeting. We can certainly have a number of different discussions around the Elections Act, around the reports, and any suggestions he might have, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Second Opposition on a supplementary question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This government has brought forward legislation to address the issues of harassment at the municipal level, following a path blazed by the member for Kiewitinook who introduced anti-harassment legislation earlier this year. There's still a class of elected officials not covered by adequate legislation, and that is members of the Legislative Assembly. The bill asks municipal councils to have a code of conduct and sets out measures for the removal of councillors when no effective code of conduct exists for MLAs. If the member from Emerson is any example, the process being used by the Premier is not very effective. Will the Premier eliminate this double standard and bring in a code of conduct for MLAs as well as a full-time independent ethics watchdog with bark and bite to make sure it is enforced?
The Honourable Minister of Municipal Relations.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. And it was a great privilege this morning to meet with a number of mayors, reeves, and councillors at the 20th anniversary of AMM, Madam Speaker. And I can tell you that Bill 2, Code of Conduct, was constructed based on all consultation with AMM, Manitoba Municipal Administrators, Madam Speaker, and all stakeholders throughout Manitoba, Madam Speaker. This bill is a result of that consultation that took place. We're looking forward to continued consultation, Madam Speaker, as we build regulation to support Code of Conduct in Manitoba.
The Honourable Leader of the Second Opposition on a final supplementary.
Madam Speaker, I was pleased the government chose to reappoint the Conflict of Interest Commissioner and did so while removing the threat of being able to fire him as we suggested. The Commissioner released an extensive report pointing out that Manitoba's conflict of interest laws are the oldest and weakest in Canada. When it comes to navigating the nooks, crannies and loopholes of Manitoba's conflict of interest laws, I will defer to the Premier's expertise. However, he has made it clear that he's concerned about conflicts of interest in the public service who face much tougher rules than MLAs and ministers. On May 18th, 2018, the now Justice Minister promised the government would be introducing new conflict of interest legislation in the fall. It didn't happen. It's not in the throne speech. Again, we have the oldest and worst conflict of interest legislation in Canada. If this government really wants Manitoba to be the most improved, fixing the worst legislation in Canada would be a great place to start. Does this mean the Premier has no intention of improving Manitoba's conflict of interest regime for MLAs? Is it just business as usual?
The Honourable Government House Leader. Thank you, Madam Speaker. We also are pleased that Jeffrey Schnorr has taken on the capacity again as the Conflict of Interest Officer. I think all of us have confidence in the work that he does, Madam Speaker. We recognize that the conflict laws when it comes to MLAs in Manitoba is significantly behind other provinces. It was left to languish by the former government for many, many years. Madam Speaker, we appreciate the report that's come from Mr. Schnorr. The government has been reviewing that review, and we certainly expect legislation to come forward, Madam Speaker, prior to the next election.